Here we have three equations to solve. They are quadratics. The second one's got a cubic, so watch out for that one. The objective is to factorise and let it equal to 0. We've already got equal to 0, which is great. We just have to factorise. If it doesn't factorise, just use the quadratic formula. All right, pause it, try it, and then come back and see if it's the same as my solution. So I hope you tried this on your own. Let's look at the solutions. 2x squared minus 3x minus 14 equals 0. I like to check to see will it factorise, and I do that by getting the discriminant, which is the part in the quadratic formula under the square root sign, under the radical sign, b squared minus 4ac. Is that a perfect square? So if it's a perfect square, then yes, it will factorise. If it's not a perfect square, no. If it's negative, don't even try, because there is no solutions. So let's have a look at a is 2. A is the coefficient of x squared. B is negative 3. That's the coefficient of x. C is negative 14. That's the constant term. Let's substitute b squared, so negative 3 squared, minus 4 times a times c. Well, that's 9. And here we got 4 2s are 8, 80, 812, and we've got a negative 112. So 9 plus 112 actually equals 121. And that is 11 squared. So yes, it will factorise. Now that we know it will factorise, I like to find two numbers that adds to give b and multiplies to give ac. So b is in fact negative 3. So we want two numbers that adds to give negative 3 and multiplies to give 2 times negative 14, which equals, we want it to multiply to equal negative 28. So what are the factors of 28? And we've got the biggest to be negative because b is a negative 3. They've got to add to be a negative. So we need a big negative in here. So let's look at the factors of negative 28. 1 times negative 28. 2 times negative 14. 3 doesn't work. 4 times negative 7. And that's it. Which of those three will the two numbers add to give negative 3? So if you look at these two numbers, 4 and negative 7 adds to equal negative 3 and 4 times. So we found the two numbers. They are 4 and negative 7. They're the two numbers we're looking for. So what I do here is I go straight into the factorising, and because a is not 1, I have to put that a value, and I like to make a positive, so I'd have to change all the signs if it was negative. And I put the 2 there. And I start by making the brackets 2x over 2. The reason I do that is because if you expand this bracket, 2x times 2x would be 4x squared. Then by dividing by 2, you'd go back to 2x squared. And we can put these two numbers, plus 4 and minus 7, in those brackets. Now, the fact is that this 2 here will cancel out of the first bracket because 2 is common in both of these. So 2 in here is 1x and 2 in here is 2. So what we've got is, when they cancels 2 out, we've got x plus 2 in that first bracket and 2x minus 7 in the second bracket. And now we've got two factors that we can simply state, okay, that first factor could be 0 or the second factor could equal 0. Therefore, take the plus 2 across to be minus 2. Take the minus 7 across to be plus 7. Now take the times 2 across to be divided by 2. And we've got our two answers. X is it, negative 2, or x is 7 over 2. Right, that took a lot of working. Let's look at K. And we go x cubed minus 5x squared minus 6x equals 0. But notice that there is an x common in each of these terms. So if we factorize that, just take x out, we'd be left with x squared 5x minus 6. And now we've got a quadratic equation, and just like I said before, we'll let factorize, and perhaps you can already see b squared minus 4ac, a is 1, b is negative 5, c is negative 6. So b squared is negative 5 squared. 4 times 1 times negative 6. So we've got 25 plus 24 equals 49. Yes, that's 7 squared. Yes, it will factorize. So I like to find two numbers. That. I'll just change the order here. Multiply to give AC. Add to give B. It doesn't really matter what order. And AC is at 1 times negative 6. So we want that to equal negative 6. B is negative 5. And so what are the factors of negative 6? 1 times negative 6. 2 times negative 3. We need 1 to be positive, 1 to be negative. And the only two that add to give negative 5 is this one. 1 and negative 6. So our two numbers are 1 and negative 6. So because A is 1, we can simply put the two brackets x, x, and then put that 1 here, put that minus 6 in there. And we factorized. The thing is here we've got two brackets. They multiply to equal 0. So we could say therefore x plus 1 equals 0. X minus 6 equals 0. Take the plus 1 across to be minus 1. Take the minus 6 across to be 6. And we've got our two solutions. Great. And let's try for I. L. 10x squared minus 7x minus 12 equals 0. All right, like I said before, we've got a quadratic equation because we've got 10x squared. And will it factorize? I like to do the discriminant. B squared minus 4ac is a perfect square. If it's a perfect square, then it will factorize. Now, A is 10, that's the coefficient of x squared. B is negative 7, that's the coefficient of x. C is negative 12, that's the constant. So B, negative 7 squared, minus 4 times 10 times negative 12. Big numbers here. So 49 minus 48, 480. And we've got this two negatives, so we've got plus. So we've got 9, 2, 5. 49 plus 480 is 529. And is that a perfect square? Well, let's check. So 20 times 20 is 400. Maybe that's 23 times 23. Let's check. Is it 23 times 23? 400 double 20 times 3, so double 60, so 120, and 3 squared is 9, 529. Yes, it's 23 squared. It will factorize. It's a perfect square. So now I know it will factorize. Let's find two numbers. If it didn't factorize, we would simply use the quadratic formula. That multiply, yeah, that's fine. That multiply to give AC and adds to give B. It's good to practice when you can factorize. So let's have a look at what is AC. AC is 10 times negative 12. So we want that to equal negative 120, and we want b to equal negative 7. Two numbers that multiply to give negative 120 and add to give negative 7. So let's make one a positive and one a negative. Choose the big one to be negative because it's equaling a negative. 2 times negative 60, 3 times negative 40, there's quite a few of these. 4 times negative 30, 5 times negative, what's 5 times negative 24? 6 times negative 20, there's a lot of them, right? 7, 8, just 8, yes. 8 times negative 15. All right, we could stop here because 8 and negative 15 is equal to negative 7. So we found our two numbers, that be 8 and negative 15. So what I like doing here is putting the two brackets, and because a is not 1, I would go 10x over 10, because 10x times 10x would be 100x squared, and 100x squared divided by 10 would go back to 10x squared. We can put these two numbers, plus 8 and minus 15, in there, and we cancel. All right, so if I cancel 2 out of here, 2 out of 10 goes 5, and cancel 2 out of this bracket, we would get 4 and 5. That bracket would be 5x plus 4. Now if we now cancel that 5 in here with that bracket, and 5 cancels with the 15, it's got to cancel out of both of those numbers. We will get 2x minus 3. Now we've got, back to basics, we've got a factor here, and so we let those two factors equal 0. Therefore, 5x plus 4 equals 0. 2x minus 3 equals 0. So take that plus 4 across to be negative 4, and then take that times 5 across to be negative 5. Sorry, take that times 5 across to be divide 5. And here, 2x, take the minus 3 across to be 3. Take that times 2 across to be divide 2. And we've got our two answers. Well, I'm going to do a quick check because this was a long one. Let's just check negative 2 and check x equals negative 2 and 7 over 2. X 2 times negative 2 squared, take away 3 times negative 2 minus 14. Does that equal 0? 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 6, negative times negative is a positive. And yes, 14 minus 14 equals 0, so that's true. And try 7 over 2. 2 times 7 over 2 squared, a bit more complicated here because we've got a fraction. 7 over 2 minus 14, does that equal 0? Well, 2 times 49 over 4 is 24.5, and 21 over 2 is 10.5, so that's 24.5. I'll just change that because I'm going to change it to decimal. 24.5 minus 14, and you see 24.5 take away 24.5 does equal 0. Yes, we've checked both of those, x equals 2 and x equals negative 7 over, x equals 7 over 2. Now let's check the next one. It shouldn't be too hard here because we just got x equals negative 1 and x equals 6. So check x equals negative 1 and x equals 6. Just double check that, yep. And put negative 1 in for cubed. If you put a negative 1 in for cubed, that becomes negative 1. Put a negative 1 in for squared, and it's a positive 1, so that will simply be minus 5, because minus 5 times 1 is minus 5. Put negative 1 here, makes it positive, because two negatives make it positive. And a negative 1 plus negative 5 plus 6 does equal 0. And finally, I'm just going to check underneath here. Let's put a 6 for each of these. So 6 cubed is 216. 6 squared is 36 times 5 is 180. And 6 times 6 is 36. 216, take away 216 does equal 0. So x does equal 6. And let's check the last one. We want their fractions, negative 4/5 and 3/2. Check. Negative 4/5 and 3/2. Let's just double check that. We got negative 4/5, 3/2. Bit harder here. So 10 times. I'm going to square them as I go. 16 over 25. And make that a plus because a negative and times a negative. 4 over 5 makes 28 over 5, takes 12. So we've got 10 times, I'm going to make that 2 5s, 32 over 5. So 5 goes at 6.4, just quickly decimals. 28 over 5, so that's 3. 5 goes in at 28 5 times, so 5. And 3/5 is 0.6. 6.4. Well, I've got 12. Yep, 6.4 plus 5.6 does equal 12. 12 take away 12 is 0. And so we've checked the 4/5.